this is much worse than Iran-Contra. Let me just give you my feeling when I finished. I read your book and I watched a number of the videos on you and looked at your story. My first reaction was, number one, it is really hard work to start international wars. It takes a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars, and you have to hire and train mercenaries and sheep dip them as terrorists, and you have to have them attack your own people or other countries, and it's a long process. And it takes many, many, many traitors inside the United States government and the Pentagon to do this. So my conclusion after looking at all this is we've had no shortage of traitors. My biggest question is when you and I know that you notified hundreds of people in Congress, everybody with all the evidence they would ever need. And I've looked at your evidence and it's absolutely courtroom ready. It could be used for any indictments in an honest courtroom. Why have these people not done anything, even those we know that are not involved?
Shell game on September 25th, 2012. That's when the dominoes started falling. When the people in my country wearing the uniform or in the Congress, when I report to them actionable intelligence that could be used to save the lives of American kids, when they do nothing and cover it up and run from it, that's treason. That can't be allowed to stand. That has to be prosecuted in a court of law. That has to be prosecuted in the court of public opinion. That has to be prosecuted in the media. And anyone who refuses to do that, when they look at it and they question me about it, and they can ask me anything and everything. I have absolutely nothing to hide, and I don't hold anything back. I never talk about things that are classified because I hold my security oath, and my allegiance to this country is inviolable and sacrosanct. But the material that I discovered was unclassified because it came to me directly from the whistleblower himself. And his story was absolutely mind-blowing, and it was infuriating because it was exactly what I should have gotten in U.S. Central Command. And the fact is the Obama administration, Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer, the Department of Justice Attorney General and Assistant Attorney General, covered it up intentionally because they represented the Swiss bank UBS in private practice. Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer were working for the law firm Covington & Burling. Covington & Burling represents these Swiss banks as the legal law firm, the entity. And Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer went back to work for Covington & Burling when they retired from the Justice Department. That's a conflict of interest at best. That's treason at worst. And another person to throw in is Roger Zackheim, the son of my boss, Dov Zackheim, who also went to work at Covington & Burling after he left the House Armed Services Committee. And he was burying my reports that I was sending up to the House Armed Services Committee. Now, keep in mind, I'm writing these reports, these intelligence cables, almost like a deep operation secret agent, if you will, in the field, and only my field is prison. And my deep operation is I've penetrated the Swiss banking world, and I have all of the bank accounts given to me by a human asset, Brad Birkenfeld, contact me for pickup, and they ignored it. It was like the classic scene from Clear and Present Danger. The guy just hung up the phone and went back to sleep.
Of course, you know there are two actual laws that require anyone in Congress you go to and report this to, or any government official at any level. You have misprision of a felony is one statute. Then you also have there's a duty to report. If you go to any officer of the court or whatever, they have an obligation to move toward prosecution to aid that. And so we have not only do we have national security crimes by these people where they're taking and misusing national security as a means to cover up crime, which itself is a crime, and can, in this case, because there are real deaths involved and there are threats to our national security with the terror they've synthetically created. You know, we not only have all kinds of major RICO crimes surrounding this. We have national security crimes, treason, and all kinds of international crimes too, war crimes, crimes against humanity. It's an absolute cesspool of evil that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, you nailed it right there. The misprision of felony is the minimum that every single one of these senators and congressmen should be charged with. And, of course, I always have the list of everyone that I ever sent it to, and I documented every piece of paper that ever got sent out of the prison. And a lot of it had to be smuggled out because it was being interfered with. and it was smuggled out by friends of mine who worked at the airport by the prison. And I have to try and sneak this intelligence out to General James Mattis, to General Martin Dempsey, to General Ray Odierno, to General Jeff Jacobs, all of these high-level commanders in the United States military. I sent it to the Pentagon Inspector General. I had a military lawyer who came down to the prison because I was making so much noise, and I put him on notice and said, you need to take this up. You need to take this forward and report it. And every single person absolutely refused to touch it. They refused to do anything. And not one single person did anything. The only people in the media that came down to visit me were Michael Isikoff of NBC News and Tom Hamburger of the Washington Post. And they refused to report a single thing about this story, and they never returned any of my documents. Michael Hastings.
That smacks of real fear. But Mike Harris, who this is his show, Mike Harris was the first one to ever go public and state the name that's whispered in the inner circles. It's called the Khazarian Mafia. Have you ever heard that term?
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with it, and you're right.
And, of course, but Mike has done extensive research and found out this goes back to the Ukraine. And of course, you know the research about Israel that 95% of the people living in Israel now claiming to have ancient Hebrew blood have none, according to John Hopkins' recent genetic studies, whereas 80% of the Palestinians do. That the Khazarian Mafia is totally empowered through the Western banking system, the City of London banking, the private Rothschild banking system, which, by the way, is people say, oh, it's the Jewish bankers. No, some of them are Babylonian Talmudists, but some of them are Germans too. And these are these old black nobility families that have infiltrated the Vatican, according to Malachi Martin, who the Vatican was infiltrated by Satanists. Yeah. That's one of the reasons that he quit it and before he was murdered. Yeah. So, we have the money system is empowered. They can print all the money they want. And because there's a hierarchy here, an establishment hierarchy that funnels down to about 3 guys, wrinkled up old guys in wheelchairs, that their brains are shrinking and they exist on hormones and IV bags. And they're remarkably criminally insane. The question I have for you is, how do these people sleep at night to take their oaths in the military and take their oaths of office, and they're confronted with actual evidence where you show them that your book is so well laid out, it's so easy, anybody, a 5th grade student could get it, and they do nothing? How can they walk around and act like everything is okay when they have put up with these crimes and they've approved the budgets that support these covert operations?
Yeah, it's remarkable because it's not the country and the culture that existed, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Even under the Reagan administration, things were entirely different in America, in our freedoms, in our military character. After, of course, Bush 41. And then Clinton, and then Bush 43, we've seen the entire disintegration of America into a police state. And we've seen the rise of the media consolidation. So you have this, sort of one world media empire. And they all buy into the same talking points, and it's the same nonsense. That had it been presented in court, had it been presented in a military tribunal, we could have acted on it. We could have acted on it and solved and tracked down a lot of these money sources, but that's what they don't want. There's a lot of actors that want to continue this war. They want to continue this endless hegemony. They want to destabilize Syria like they've destabilized Libya and Iraq, and then they want to go into Iran with the ultimate ambitions of going up into Russia and then China. And I think we're now at the precipice of a World War III because China, Russia, and Iran aren't going to settle for it. They're not going to entertain any more of these Saudi Arabian Wahhabi advances up into Syria. We've already seen Europe betrayed by Turkey and by Saudi Arabia, sending all these North Africans and other Wahhabi Sunni types up into Europe. We're seeing the result of what it's doing to Germany and Scandinavia. And now you see the European Union disintegrating. So all of what has been going on in the last couple years has been quickening But we have to be peculiar. We have to be different. We have to stand out from amongst them, and we have to be bold, wise as serpents, and as gentle as doves. We have to be aggressive. We have to stand on the truth and proclaim it to every platform that we can. The courts, the media, the alternative media on the internet, as well as in our churches, our institutions, whatever we have access to in our small-time communities. We need to be presenting this truth.
This reminds me of these European leaders. Now we have this massive infiltration of immigrants financed by George Soros and these other globalists who are connected to the private central bankers' endless money supply they just created from nothing. And of course, what really is astounding is the leaders of Europe, especially the Scandinavian countries, not only are they allowing this, they're telling their citizens that the Islamic culture of the people coming in is superior to yours.
Well, I think it can be attributed to a lack of manhood, a lack of warrior aggression and testosterone, and of course to the chemicalization of culture, the chemicalization of some of these chemtrails, of fluoride on the water, whatever the excuses are. There is a chemical alteration of humanity that's been going on. There's also the castration, the emasculation of men, the destruction of the family. I've seen this up close and personal in my doctoral studies. I mean, my education at the Heritage Foundation and studying this and working under some very brilliant men in the area of social science and the natural law and the family and marriage and the sexual dimension. It's very clear that manhood and the nuclear family, the classic identity roles, have been attacked by a homosexual agenda, a liberal feminist agenda, all of which have been enforced through laws. We saw it in the Bush administration. We saw, fathers being attacked. We see violent child support agencies. Crushing fathers, easy divorce laws. So we see a intimidation and an emasculation of men. All of that is now coming out. The Scandinavian cultures and countries, I think they've been brainwashed.
We had a major coup d'etat in this country in 1963 when the Central Intelligence Agency, Operation 40, was run by George Bush, murdered JFK, and that's why the Bush clan took over. They call it the Bush Crime Cabal, which is really, that's not even their real name. Their real name is Scherf, but they were involved with the Germans, and a lot of people consider them, a subclass of the Khazarian mafia, but because of this, we had a whole change of government, and the Central Intelligence Agency, which really just is another intelligence operation of the City of London bankers, they've stayed in power. It's so when you have a Central Intelligence Agency that is so criminal. Jack Kennedy, when he was president, he said he wanted to break it into 1,000 pieces. That he knew that it was basically run by people that were members of a satanic secret society. He knew that. He talked about it publicly, and he wanted to smash it to 1,000 pieces. He knew that secrecy was ruining our country, and he wanted to remove these secret societies from prominence and the power that they had. He wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. He signed an executive order to get rid of the Federal Reserve and started printing U.S. dollars like Lincoln did. And of course, once the CIA assassinated him, they've stayed in power ever since.